everybody, welcome to BrickVault. My name is Jack, and today we're taking a look at every single Spider-Man minifig ever made. Now in this collection there are 17 minifigs in total. Not all of them are Spider-Man minifigs, but when we get into it I think you'll see why we added some extras. When I was tracking all of these minifigs down on BrickLink, I realized that Spider-Man, I believe, is the very first superhero minifig ever made by LEGO. Back in the early 2000s when those Spider-Man movies were coming out, LEGO started producing sets for those movies way before they were working on other comic book superheroes. So it's kind of cool to know that Spider-Man is the oldest superhero character within LEGO. Alright, so this episode's going to follow a pretty similar format to the rest. I'm going to go through this collection chronologically when the minifigs were released, how their designs change, and whether or not the minifigs are worth anything. So let's get right into it and start off with the very first guy right here. So here are the very first superhero minifigs ever made. They came out back in 2002 in the Spider-Man Action Studio set. One is Spider-Man and the other is Peter Parker. This Spider-Man minifig came out in a couple other sets actually, while the Peter Parker minifig only came out in the Action Studio set. Oddly enough, you'd think Peter Parker would cost more, but he's only around $8, while this original Spider-Man is a minimum of $17. The Peter Parker minifig is pretty straightforward. He's got a blue jacket with the zipper and some pockets, black pants, and of course a face with glasses. For the first time iteration of the Spider-Man minifig, it looks pretty darn good. The silver meshing for the webs look pretty good on the suit. Both the front and back of the head are printed, and I like the big graphic for the spider on his back. Not bad for first time iterations. And when we move up 1 year to 2003, here is the next pair of Peter Parker and Spider-Man minifigs. Let's compare the Peter Parker minifigs first. This guy came out in the set The Origins, number 4851, and I certainly think he looks better than the first. The detailing for the jacket certainly looks better, and the smile on the LEGO figure face is just a little cleaner as well. But let's move on to this other Spider-Man of 2003, and there really isn't comparing him with any others. That's because he is the Balaclava Spider-Man, and this is when Peter Parker is first becoming a superhero, and he doesn't have a proper super suit yet. Everything about this minifig is relatively simple, but I do really appreciate the printing on the chest. The gray fades away on the edges, and it really does look like he used a stencil to spray paint the spider graphic on his sweatshirt. He's a very unique minifig, and relatively rare. If you want to get this guy in good condition, he's commonly priced at around $40 on BrickLink. And moving on up to 2004, we get yet another new Spider-Man and another new Peter Parker. This Spider-Man here is a pretty common one. He first came out in the set Doc Ock's Bank Robbery, set number 4854, but he also appeared in 4 other sets. And this minifig looks pretty darn close to the original Spider-Man. You'll note first off that the blue in the body is much darker, which I think looks a bit better. And the only other things that changed about the printing for this guy are the symbols for the spider on both his front and back of the torso. He's a good looking minifig. I definitely do like Spider-Man better with the dark blue, and even though he was released in a number of sets, he's still about $10 on BrickLink. And here's our latest Peter Parker. He came out in Doc Ock's Hideout set, number 4856. And he's a bit different now, obviously. He is flesh colored instead of yellow skinned. And let's just compare him to the other two real quick. He certainly looks a little bit less nerdy than the other Peter Parkers. The detailing for his jacket makes him look a little bit more laid back, and he doesn't have any glasses. Not a bad fig, and he is actually the last of the Peter Parkers produced by LEGO. And I'd say he goes for around $15 on BrickLink. So here are the Spider-Man and Peter Parker pairs from 2002 to 2004, and these are the only superhero minifigs that were produced outside of the regular superhero themed sets. Specifically, I'm talking about the themes DC Comics superheroes and Marvel superheroes. We don't get any new Spider-Mans until the year 2012. That's an 8-year gap. And when we finally come back, we've got this Spider-Man here, and I think he is without question the most common Spider-Man minifig. If any of you guys got a Spider-Man set within the last 4 years, most likely this is the guy. He first appeared in the set Spider-Man's Doc Ock Ambush, set number 6873, but has appeared so far in 7 other sets throughout the years. And because LEGO's no longer trying to imitate Spider-Man from the movies, this guy's printing represents Spider-Man from the comics a lot better. The Spidey symbol on his chest is a little smaller, and he has that much more common spider-ish symbol on his back. The red printing on his waist is no longer on the groin piece like the previous Spider-Mans, but instead is just on the very bottom of the torso piece. That's probably why this minifig is a little bit more common than the rest. I think he's a bit easier to produce. Also, the shape of his eyes have changed a little bit, and once again this is so he resembles the comic book characters more. Alright, a good minifig, a bit simple, and extremely cheap. Now let's move on to one of the most expensive Spider-Man minifigs out there. This is the exclusive black suit symbiote Spider-Man from the 2012 Comic-Con. I think I already did an episode on this guy that goes a bit in depth, but let me give you the basics really quick. The muscle printing underneath the symbol for the spider is a little bit different than the rest of the Spider-Man muscle printings. Why that is, I'm not really sure. And he does have the awesome spider symbol on the front and back of his chest. The black outline of the Spider-Man eyes used from the previous guy ends up being the printing outline for the giant white eyes on this guy, and he's incredibly expensive. Prices on these exclusive minifigs vary. He's not quite as rare as some of the other ones, but he regularly sells for a couple $100. Speaking of expensive minifigs, let's move on up to 2013, and this guy right here might be one of the most expensive minifigs in our entire LEGO collection. He's once again another San Diego Comic-Con exclusive, and this time they only produced a couple hundred of these guys, and here's the price of what he sold for on eBay only about a week before I made this video. I also did an individual review on this guy as well, and I said that he has the best printing out of any of the Spider-Man minifigs. I do stand by that statement, I'm not going to go on and on about it, but the main reasons why I said that were because he has mesh printing in the eyes, which no other Spider-Mans have. The web printing on the chest is a little bit more dynamic by curving in, which also no other Spider-Mans have, and he has this light blue speckled printing on the front and back of the torso as well as the legs. This somewhat pays homage to the comic book art style, and aesthetically it just looks really, really good. Alright, I've said my piece on that, and actually, believe it or not, we got a 2-for-1 back in 2013. This here is Spider-Woman, and it's the only version of her that you can get in LEGO. The detailing for this fig is very, very good as well. They use very thick black lines between the yellow and red, which is pretty accurate to how her suit actually looks in the comics, and she's also the only minifig in this entire collection that has two different expressions. As you might suspect, I also did a review episode on this minifig, as we do for all of our San Diego Comic-Con exclusives here, and just like the rest of the 2013 exclusives, her price is very, very high. As always, it's hard to pin down an exact price for these exclusives. She's marked at under $1,000 on BrickLink and over $1,000 on eBay. When there's only a couple hundred of a certain collectible in existence, buying prices usually go case by case. And here's our next minifig, who is not Spider-Man, but I just don't feel right not including him in this collection. This is Venom from the Spider-Man Spider Cycle Chase set, number 76004, and this guy looks really, really good. You might think he looks a little bit familiar, and unfortunately, yes, he does actually have the same torso piece as the Black Suit Symbiote Spider-Man. I mean, that does make sense, but at the same time, Black Suit Symbiote Spider-Man feels a little bit less exclusive now. Venom also came with this back attachment with these black vine pieces, which look pretty cool, I guess. And he also has this really awesome printing for the face that shows a jagged evil smile and those pretty warped looking eyes. And he also isn't cheap, he goes for about $10 on BrickLink. Moving on up to 2014 really quick. Our new Spider-Man here came out in the Spider-Man Spider Car Pursuit, number 10665, and Spider-Man Hideout 10687. And let's show him off next to the very common Spider-Man of 2012, and you can see the one difference pretty easily. He has the red groin piece now. Alright, let's move on up to 2015 now. We have 4 new figs. And I said 4 new figs, not 4 new Spider-Man figs. And that's because this first guy here isn't Spider-Man, we've got Carnage. And he came out in the set Carnage's Shield Sky Attack, number 76036. And I think he's got some of the coolest detailing. Not just within this collection, but I think even among any of the villains. He's got this erratic design that's all over his body that somewhat outlines some muscles on his chest, but generally it just kind of looks like it's oozing and morphing. But what I do appreciate about this minifig is that the detailing goes all over the body. This includes the toes and the sides of the arms. Carnage also came with a similar vine contraption on the back, plus an extra vine for his hand. It looks a little bit strange, but then again, having a morphing tentacle body is strange also. And while we're talking about characters that have tentacle things sticking out from their back, let's move on to the Iron Spider. For those that don't know who the Iron Spider is, first, Spider-Man wore this armor designed by Tony Stark before the Civil War comics, and after the Civil War, 3 of these suits were given to other guys, and they made up a team that were called the Scarlet Spiders. And because Spider-Man came in the same set, you know it's not him inside the suit, and even later down the comics, only one of those Iron Spiders survives, and his name is Patrick. So if it's worth anything to you guys watching, the name of the person inside the suit is probably Patrick. He came out in the set Rhino and Sandman Supervillain Team Up, set number 76037, and he looks very, very cool. The printing for the body is pretty good. He's got some basic muscle detailing underneath a golden spider symbol on the front, and you can see the contraption for the tentacles on his back. He's got golden hands, and the shape of his eyes changed somewhat. They look a little bit more narrow. A pretty cool fig to have. He's going for around $9 on BrickLink. but something tells me when this set is no longer produced, the price for this minifig will probably go up. Moving right along, here is Red Boot Spider-Man. He shares all the same attributes as the 2012 very common Spider-Man, but this time his legs are dual molded and it looks a little bit better. This is the Spider-Man that also came out in the same set as the Iron Spider, and something tells me they're going to be releasing more of these Spider-Man minifigs in the future. The last Spider-Man of 2015 is this Miles Morales Spider-Man. That is to say, the most recent iteration of Spider-Man in the comics is no longer Peter Parker, but instead Miles Morales. And no, this is not a symbiote suit. The suit's color combo is simply black and red now, and I think the redesign looks pretty good. The shape for the web design on the front and back of the torso has changed a bit, but the symbols for the spiders look pretty good, and I really like how they added a little bit of shading and depth to the eyes. It's a subtle bit of printing, but I certainly like that detail. He too came out in the set Carnage's Shield Sky Attack, and I'm very curious to see if we get more iterations of this character in the future. Moving on to the very last of the Spider-Mans, he came out in 2016, and I think he's definitely the funniest. He came out in the Spider-Man vs. Green Goblin Mighty Micro set, and he looks pretty silly. He's got short stubby legs like any of the Mighty Micro figs, and extremely big and basic printing on the front and back of the chest. All these figs have weird wacky expressions, and because Spider-Man doesn't have a mouth on his mask, they showed all the silliness through the eyes. And for what it's worth, this minifig also came with a camera. I for one am a fan of those Mighty Micros, and I certainly hope they make a whole new batch of silly superheroes for them. Alright, and believe it or not, we just finished the collection, though not every single figure in it is Spider-Man, and he went through some nice changes throughout the years. It's kinda cool to know that he is the first of the superhero minifigs, and despite being less than 20 minifigs in the collection, due to the 3 Comic-Con exclusives included, it's our most expensive. Even more expensive than this one. That's 127 Jedi minifigures. And usually at the end of these collection videos, I like to say which new version of this minifigure that I'd like to see next. And I think you'll all agree when I say the next minifig version of Spider-Man should be the Peter Parker from Spider-Man 3. Alright, that was a joke, please don't unsubscribe to our channel. We actually really do like making these videos for you guys, and if you have any ideas about what kind of collection you want to see next, you can always let us know in the comment section below. Other than that, we're done, so thanks a lot for watching, and if you enjoy our content, feel free to subscribe, and we'll see you next time at BrickVault.